All right, again, welcome to the meeting this evening for the 2015 Indian Point Annual Assessment Committee. Again, my name is Brent Rugen. Normally by day, I'm Region 1's Regional Counsel. However, tonight I'll be serving as the facilitator for the meeting. In a couple of minutes, once I finish with my opening remarks, I'm going to turn it over to the NRC staff you see assembled here. After a short presentation by them, we'll turn it back to you for your questions and comments. For your awareness, the meeting tonight is being recorded. There's an audio recording being produced, and the transcript will be generated after the meeting. Both the audio and the transcript will be posted to the NRC website. So in light of that, I would ask that when it is your turn to speak, you please identify yourself and do so clearly into the microphone so we can capture it. I would also ask, for the sake of the audio recording, that people not speak over each other. In an effort to address some of the concerns raised last year regarding the order in which individuals are called to speak, I devised an alternative approach to that used last year. An approach hopefully that would be fair. At the registration table, there were 3 sign-up sheets. One for those who plan to use some of their time to speak against continued operation. One for those who plan to speak and use a portion of their time to speak for continued operation. And one for those who don't plan to express an opinion one way or the other regarding continued operation. What I'll do is I'll rotate through these 3 lists in the way that CSAN does it. I will call people to the microphones in descending chronological order. If you'd like to speak and have not already signed up on one of those 3 lists, the remaining sheets are in the back of the room. Please go do so now. I recognize that there may be some flaws to this approach, just as there would be with any approach, but this one, after much deliberation, I believe it achieved the maximum value of fairness and transparency. With that said, moving forward, if you have comments about how I'm conducting the meeting this evening, I'd love to hear it on one of the feedback forms we have in the back of the room after the meeting tonight. I'm going to call 3 people at a time, just so people have a little time to prepare. I will direct you to one of the 2 aisle microphones. If you would like to have a microphone brought to you because of a disability, please raise your hand when I call your name and I'll bring the microphone over to you. I would ask that we keep this area in the front row or beyond the front row clear at all times. If you have something you'd like to present to the NRC staff, please either hand it to me, Diane Strachey, if you could raise your hand, and then Rich Barkley over there. So hand it to one of us, and then we'll bring it up here to the panel. In an effort to give as many people an opportunity to speak this evening, please limit yourself to 3 minutes. Know that I'm going to hold everyone to this. A yellow card will be held up when you have 1 minute left, it will say 2 minutes on it, and a red card will be held up at 3 minutes. At that point, I will politely ask you to conclude. We already have a number of individuals signed up to speak this evening. As such, it's unlikely, given in our allotted time, we'll be able to get through all of them. And hence, not everyone who intended to speak this evening may get an opportunity to do so. Know that the NRC staff will remain after the meeting out in the hallway to have individual discussions with members of the public. Also at the registration table there are comment cards. Any comment cards submitted to the NRC this evening will be attached as an addendum to the meeting transcript we upload to the website. Based on the comment we received in the wake of last year's meeting and in response to some more recent NRC meetings, I think it makes sense to lay some ground rules regarding how the meeting will be conducted this evening. First, I recognize that many have very strongly held opinions concerning the matters likely to be discussed this evening. I ask you nonetheless to please adhere to civil decorum, that you respect each other, just as we will respect what you have to say. So please don't disrupt each other, and just as you wouldn't want to be interrupted during your 3 minutes at the microphone, please respect the speaking time of others, including when the NRC staff is responding to questions. You have absolutely every right to disagree with what others may say here this evening. Moreover, you have every right to voice that disagreement during your time at the microphone. I ask that we, however, I implore you to be civil to each other, and I ask that we all refrain from invectives and personal derogatory remarks. Regarding generally disruptive behavior, interrupting others, using inappropriate language directed at other individuals, we're going to play by a 3 strikes rule. The first 2 strikes are verbal warnings. The third one, I will ask you to leave the meeting. Regarding threatening behavior, let me be as plain as possible. That's the next point. Making any threatening gesture or statement to anyone in the room will be cause for immediate ejection from this meeting tonight, no warning given. If you feel that you've been threatened, please let me know, or please tell one of the NRC security, Chris, the bearded individual in the back of the room who's raising his hand, please tell him so that we can deal with the situation. Before I conclude, a few minor housekeeping matters. The bathrooms are directly out the exits. While cameras are permitted, please try not to obstruct the view of others, and I would ask you to be reasonable in your use of flash. You can't use it, just be reasonable. And if you would be so kind to please silence your cell phones at this point, I'm going to do the same because I've forgotten to do that as well. All right. With that said, let me introduce the NRC staff here. Dan Dorman, seated in the middle, is the regional administrator for Region 1. He has been in that position since 2014. Dan has 34 years of nuclear experience, including nearly 10 years in the Navy and over 24 years at the NRC. He has served as the Deputy Office Director in both the Nuclear Materials and Operating Reactor Programs in the NRC Headquarters Office, and was a member of the NRC's near-term task force and the lessons learned from the Fukushima accident. Ho Nee, seated to, he's raising his hand. Ho is the Director for Region 1's Division of Reactor Projects. Ho has 23 years of nuclear safety experience, 18 with the NRC. In his current position, he is responsible for the NRC resident inspector station at operating reactors in the northeastern United States. In fact, Ho actually started his NRC career in Region 1 as a resident inspector before taking on various headquarters management positions. Prior to the NRC, Ho was in operations at a U.S. Naval nuclear power plant. And finally, but not least, Art Burritt. Art is a branch chief for Branch 2 in Region 1's Division of Reactor Projects. Branch 2 includes oversight of Indian Point Units 2 and 3. Art has 38 years of nuclear experience, including 23 with the NRC. Prior to joining the NRC, he was a licensed senior reactor operator and worked with 3 nuclear utilities as a plant operator and trainer after serving in the Navy's nuclear program. With that, let me thank you again, and I will turn it over to Dan Dorman for the NRC opening presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. I just have some very brief opening remarks. Our primary purpose for this meeting is to listen. And we would like to hear from as many of you as possible. And so we're going to have some very brief opening remarks. I've also asked the staff, as it comes time during the question and answers, for us to either answer questions or respond to comments, to keep our responses as brief as possible so that we can get as many of you to the microphone as possible. With that, Art will very briefly summarize our assessment of the performance of Indian Point over the past year. And then Ho will very briefly touch on the status of several issues that we know are of great interest. And I'm sure we'll get a number of questions and comments on the issues that he's going to touch on. And then we'll give the floor back to Brett and we'll get right into the questions and comments. So with that, thank you for coming out tonight, and I'll turn it over to Art.
Thank you, Dan.
I'd like to start off with a summary of what we found through our inspection program in 2014. Overall, we determined that Indian Point was operated safely, consistent with its license conditions. This is based on over 8,200 hours of inspection activities that were focused on operation and maintenance of Indian Point. Our 3 full-time resident inspectors were in the control room daily observing plant operations as well as maintenance and testing of safety systems. They also check other areas such as security, emergency planning, and radiation safety. We also have specialist inspectors out of our regional office that did many weeks of detailed reviews focused on areas such as emergency preparedness, radiation safety, operator licensing, and security. While Entergy operated the plant safely, we did identify deficiencies in their performance. These issues were assessed by our inspectors and determined to be of very low safety significance. While these deficiencies were promptly corrected, our inspectors also verified the correction of those issues. Our assessment also included a review of performance indicators. These are measures that evaluate things like the number of unplanned shutdowns. Our inspectors validated the data, and after reviewing the data, we determined there was no additional oversight required for Indian Point. Additionally, in 2014, Indian Point conducted an emergency exercise. This was evaluated by both NRC and FEMA. There were no significant concerns identified during that exercise. It was a hostile action-based drill that was focused on practicing and evaluating the coordination and communication between the site staff, as well as local, state, and federal law enforcement officials regarding the security event. The NRC during this event also practices emergency response roles, including activating our incident response center and dispatching the site team. So again, Indian Point was operated safely and continues to operate safely, and we will conduct our comprehensive baseline inspection program going forward. Now I'd like to turn it over to Hope for some additional comments on other areas of safety.
Thank you, Art. I'd like to give you an overview of 3 emerging issues where the NRC is taking action to ensure safety at Indian Point. First, many of you are aware of the recent failure of the transformer at Unit 3. Although the plant was safely shut down, the NRC is looking into an issue where fire water made its way unexpectedly into an electrical switchgear room. The fire water had no effect on that equipment in the room, but again, it was an unexpected condition, so we sent a special inspection team out to the site to find out how the water got into that room, to understand the potential effects it could have on that equipment if there had been a larger amount of water, and also to find out what Entergy is doing to fix the problem. The team arrived on site yesterday, and you should be able to expect to see the results of their inspection in a report that will be issued later this summer. Second, after the Fukushima accident, the NRC issued several new requirements to nuclear power plants to enhance their capability to withstand the effects of severe natural events. With respect to earthquakes and floods, the NRC conducted inspections that were independent from Entergy's walkdowns of their facility to confirm that the plant systems are sufficiently protected for the earthquakes and floods to which it was originally licensed for. In light of new information that shows the potential for earthquakes and floods that could be larger than previously estimated, the NRC has required Entergy to assess that new information and to make modifications to their plant as necessary to ensure that adequate protections are available at the facility. And it is our understanding that Entergy is on track in meeting the NRC schedule in this area. To further enhance the ability of the plant to mitigate the effects of a severe event, NRC required more portable electric and cooling water supplies to be available. This is a so-called flex strategy that is being implemented by the U.S. nuclear industry. Entergy has purchased this portable equipment and will be storing it in a hardened bunker on site, and if needed, flex equipment from other parts of the country can be airlifted to the site if necessary. The third issue I'd like to mention is that many of you are aware that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission recently approved plans for a new natural gas pipeline running near the Indian Point facility. Because this new pipeline might impact the plant, the NRC independently reviewed Entergy's assessment of the potential hazard and the safety features to protect against the pipe break. The NRC found that Entergy appropriately determined that the new pipeline would not introduce significant additional risk to the safe operation of Indian Point, and that pipeline would not require a prior NRC approval. Our review of this matter included independent calculations by NRC experts who use the best available modeling tools and regulatory guidance to assess the effects of a pipeline rupture. And this concludes my portion of the NRC's remarks. I'd like now to turn it back over to Dan Dorman.
We have representatives tonight in the audience from the offices of Senator Gillibrand, Congresswoman Lowy, and Congressman Engler. We also have other local state and elected officials who are their representatives who would like to introduce themselves tonight. So could I have Mr. Takacs please come to the microphone to introduce himself? TKACS? Okay. You're with the town of Portland?
Correct, representing.
Yes, town of Portland representing the town supervisor and the police.
Thank you. And then I have Susanna Gilden. Would you like to make a prepared statement? If you could just go to the microphone.
Thank you, Susanna Glidden, to read our New York State Assemblywoman Sandy Bailiff's statement. This Saturday's transformer fire at the Indian Point Energy Center is a reminder that we must be extremely vigilant with safety protections and oversight at this facility. Over the past few months, I have actively opposed the siting of the 42-inch diameter, high-pressure AIM gas pipeline near the nuclear power plant. I am well aware that there are numerous safety protections in place at Indian Point, with backups upon backups. In fact, transformer fires do happen, and the plant did take appropriate actions to deal with this one. Nevertheless, to add yet another high-powered energy distribution system into the equation really seems to be tempting fate. Just because it is expedient to make this the chosen path for the pipeline does not make it wise. This particular emergency was contained, but even with a relatively minor event such as this in the scope of Indian Point, unexpected circumstances can lead to unexpected reactions. Governor Cuomo stated about the accident at Indian Point, anything that happens at this plant obviously raises concerns. A transformer fire in and of itself is not dangerous, but the fear is always that one situation is going to trigger another. A confluence of high-energy power generation and distribution at this location is literally asking for trouble. This is not the only option, and therefore should not be the chosen option for the AIM gas pipeline siting. I urge New York State to seek a stay from the federal government on the approval to site a pipeline at this locale. We must conduct an independent risk analysis using research from past gas line explosions to determine if there really is no additional threat to public safety with this new high-powered pipeline at this location. The safety of our public is at stake. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Michelle McCarthy. If she could please come to one of the microphones. Thank you.
I'm the Communications Director for Assemblymember Helen Jaffe, representing the 97th Assembly District in Rockland County in New York State. For several years, I have introduced, and the New York State Assembly has passed resolutions to oppose the relicensing of Indian Point plants 1 and 2. Unless the plant undergoes a true outside independent safety assessment, that emergency experts from outside the NRC agree on an evacuation plan that could work, and 3, that all criteria in the licensing of new reactors are considered and applied to those reactors, such as Indian Point, seeking a license extension. Even Governor Andrew Cuomo has said that, quote, if the risk of an accident at Indian Point is too high, the plant should not be in operation. I understand the role that nuclear power plays, and I am not here this evening to debate it. However, this is the wrong plant at the wrong site for our area. Each and every one of the thousands of people I represent is at risk in the event of an accident. The most recent transformer explosion and fire, the #1 risk to nuclear reactors, further illustrates the need for a thorough, independent investigation and, at the very least, a study of this plant. I've introduced also a resolution in the Assembly for that independent study. It did not pass the New York State Senate. I am glad to hear that the Federal Nuclear Regulatory Commission announced that it is sending a team here to investigate the most recent failure. Indian Point needs to be put under the microscope by federal investigators, not treated with kid gloves. Protecting the public requires looking at every possible angle for risk, and unless the NRC starts doing so with a thorough, independent safety review, Indian Point will not have earned the right to continue operating. Thank you.
And there was one woman who spoke to me, and she said that her family and friends, when they were in Germany during World War II, were in denial. And that's what I feel we are right now. Because we think it's not going to happen, but that's what the German Jews thought was going to happen in Germany before World War II. Many of my constituents and myself are scared, because we believe that this area is in danger, and there's many warning signals. I believe that the Indian Point power plant should be decommissioned. I do not believe that Entergy implemented an effective maintenance program, and I feel very strongly that they should be shut down. The riverkeeper pointed out that water from an unknown source was found in the electrical supply rooms at Indian Point after the transformer failure occurred. Is Entergy's fire protection program inadequate? The NRC previously granted Indian Point dozens of exemptions from critical fire safety requirements, including one that reduced the requirement that insulation from fire lasts 1 hour to just 24 minutes. FDRC recently approved the expansion of 2 high-pressure natural gas pipelines from 36 inches to 42 inches, about 105 feet from Indian Point's vital structures, which is a major safety concern. And we've had in this area some horrible fatal tragedies from gas explosions. There's 2 earthquake fault lines that cross just north of Indian Point. The NRC revised its estimates of earthquake risk in 2010, concluding that Indian Point is the most likely nuke plant in the nation to experience core damage due to an earthquake. The NRC has relaxed requirements for insulation on electrical cables, controlling the reactors, reducing inspection requirements on rusting containment domes, and leaking spent fuel pools. And New York City and Greenberg's drinking water reservoir lies 15 miles from Indian Point. 9 million people depend on the safety of the water supply every day. Finally, the evacuation plans are totally inadequate. I've been town supervisor of Greenberg for 24 years. I have no idea what I'd do if there'd be an evacuation or an Indian Point meltdown, and I don't think anybody in Westchester County really would know for certain where they would go. Will I go north, south, east, or west? I have no clue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other elected officials who'd like to...
Vishnu Patel. I'm scientist, retired scientist from IBM, and I'm a councilman. And I have visited nuclear power plant when I was at IBM with a whole bunch of world-class scientists. My issue is the 42-inch gas line. If the transformer burn and have trouble, if the gas line explode at the same time, the transformer may be burned too, and it's a double trouble. So I don't want the gas line to speak or vomit their waste into water, air, and ground, and hence into the food chain. It is the water we use from reservoirs. More than 9-10 million people around New York are dependent on that. If there wasn't no drinking water in New York, there will not be no New York. So protect, preserve what we have, use less and save more. We don't need a very big gas line, because those gas lines have miles and miles. They are storing very large quantity of gas, and they turn it on when the prices go up, and then turn it off when prices go down. We don't need a big one to destroy the environment, keep the New York State, and make the United States #1 use less, and save more. Thank you.
Any other representatives of elected officials or elected officials themselves?
My name is Joy Haber, and I'm reading a brief statement prepared by Westchester County Legislator Mary Jane Chinsky, representing the 12th District. Good evening. I would like to specifically draw attention to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's March 9, 2015 decision, CLI 15-6, which held that aging management review should not be required for the transformers of Indian Point. In that decision, the NRC reversed the 2013 determination of the Atomic Safety and Licensing Board in decision LBP 1513, which resolved in favor of New York State's contention that aging management review of the transformer should be required. The transformer failure on Saturday, May 9th is the most recent example of why an aging management review of the transformers is needed. With testing on this transformer performed as recently as March of this year, it is clear that the regular testing programs in the maintenance rule are not adequate to detect problems and may very well lead to abrupt failure. This point was emphasized by the New York expert witness in testimony to the Atomic Safety and Licensing Board. The ASLB was correct to recognize this point and to require aging management review for the transformers. I urge the NRC to reconsider its March 2015 decision to be consistent with the ASLB and to require aging management review for the transformers at Indian Point Energy Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other elected officials or representatives thereof? Okay. Would the NRC like to make any comments at this point? Or?
I think we're going to get a lot of comments on a lot of these issues, so let's keep it going.
Okay. So, again, what I'm going to do is call 3 people up at a time to the aisle microphones. Please keep your comments under 3 minutes so we can maximize the number of people who can speak this evening. And again, I implore you to be respectful to each other and please not interrupt each other. Not only as a courtesy to each other, but also for the sake of the transfer. Mr. Yeko will be first. Ms. Tsou, T-S-O-U, will be next, followed by Bernadette Kelly.
Gentlemen of the NRC board, thank you for this opportunity to address the board, and in view of the many who wish to speak, I'll be brief. 1, Spectra Energy's plan to put a pipeline within 105 feet of spent fuel rods is insane and can only be motivated not by need but by greed. I urge you to reject it for the following reasons. To even consider putting a 42-inch high-pressure gas line anywhere near the juncture of 2 fault lines, namely the Ramapo and the Stanford earthquake faults, both of them dangerously close to Indian Point 3, is literally playing with fire. I've been a resident of Westchester County since 1984, and back in 1985, my wife and I were living in Elmsford, and there was a seismic event registering a surprisingly strong 4.1 in the Ramapo fault, the one closest to the reactor. They felt this quake clear out of Suffolk County in Long Island. It rolled my wife and me out of our bed. Earthquakes happen. They've been known to rupture gas lines catastrophically. It happened in LA, it happened in San Francisco, and it can happen here. Additionally, one of your own NRC studies titled Calculation of Reactor Accident Consequences, or CRAC2, updated for Indian Point 3, which recently had yet another transformer fire, found that in the event of an accident with breach of nuclear materials, either the core or spent nuclear fuel containers, the report estimates 50,000 peak early fatalities, 167,000 peak early injuries, and tens of thousands of cancer deaths, and a cost in property damage of $314 billion. It is psychotic to put a high-pressure gas line rated at 850 pounds per square inch anywhere near this place. It's like falling asleep on railroad tracks. You can do it 99 times with no problem, but that 100th time will be the cruncher, quite literally. Roll the dice all you want, but eventually you'll roll snake eyes. The plant is situated in one of the most dense population areas in the world, home to an estimated 20 million people. What is at stake is not only New York City with its many irreplaceable historic and cultural sites, but the home of Wall Street, financial center of not only the United States, but arguably the entire world. You are essentially willing to put the lives of these 20 million people in jeopardy because based on your rosy predictions, you're willing to roll the dice. You're not only rolling dice with someone else's money, you're not even standing in a casino. Thank you, sir.
Please go ahead and, as a reminder, please introduce yourself, just so we get a correct pronunciation of your name as well, because I'm probably not doing it, before you give your remarks.
Can I do it now? It's Stephen Gecko, G-Y-E-T-K-O, and I'm with New York Against Fracking. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ling Zhou, L-I-N-G, and my last name Zhou is spelled T-S-O-U. I'm a resident of New York City and a co-founder of United for Action. Indian Point should be shut down immediately and decommissioned carefully and responsibly. Approximately 20 million people live or work within a 50-mile radius of Indian Point, including 9 million people in New York City, which is only about 30 miles south of Indian Point. Indian Point sits on top of fault lines and possible earthquake of up to 7 on the Richter scale. And this is possible and is expected. What would happen to all the unsafely stored spent fuel at Indian Point, which is deteriorating and leaking as it is? I was visiting Tokyo on the day when the nuclear meltdown occurred after earthquake and tsunami hit Fukushima. I recall vividly the terrible tremor of the earthquake in Tokyo, which is about 150 miles south of Fukushima. I can't help but think what would happen to all of us living in the surrounding area of Indian Point in case of an emergency at Indian Point. It is impossible to evacuate such a large population from such an area. What would happen to the ensuing pain and ill health suffered by such a large population and their children and grandchildren? Who will pay for all the cleanup and the health care costs of the people who got sick as a result? How could any company or government agency in good conscience put 20 million lives at such risk? To add insult to injury, FERC has approved the construction by Spectra of a Vancombe pipeline, which is a new high-pressure and potentially explosive natural gas pipeline, approximately 1,500 feet from Indian Point reactors 2 and 3, and only several hundred feet from the spent fuel route. New York State DEC also has approved the water permit earlier this month. This is totally irresponsible. How can our government agencies consider profits by oil and gas companies more important than the health and safety of 20 million people? Will we only wake up after a disaster happens? The irony is that New York City does not even need Indian Point. Indian Point only provides about 5% of New York City's electricity, not the 20% to 25% touted by the company. If Indian Point is shut down, New York City can easily make up this 5% by conservation, energy efficiency, or supply from renewable energy sources like solar and wind. We urge you not to renew the operating license for Indian Point and shut down Indian Point immediately. Thank you.
Next up is Ms. Kelly, followed by Mr. Eric Eller, and then Susan Shapiro.
Good evening. My name is Bernadette Kelly. I'm the international representative assigned to the New York region and home to Teamsters Local 456 here in Elmsford, New York. I'm proud to be here representing our 35,000 members and with our brothers and sisters from the labor movement in Westchester County. Welcome. Indian Point is a safe place to work for our members and the backbone of Westchester's economy. The facility's commitment to organized labor and to its employees has been long documented, providing good, stable middle-class jobs. Plant personnel receive more job training than those of any other industry, as it should be. Employees also undergo extensive training every few weeks and are tested regularly on their safety skills. As the recent events show us, they are prepared for any situation that occurs. Teamster members know that safety is the highest priority in Indian Point, and if we had any doubt about that, we would simply not work there, let alone live near it, represent those members, as many of us do, with our families. Since Entergy took over from the Power Authority more than 10 years ago, they have also maintained a unionized workforce with their contractors, many of which are represented by our local union. Indian Point's vital role in improving the environment was made apparent in Mayor de Blasio's recently issued One NYC plan that the International Brotherhood of Teamsters was a part of. The plant generates 2,000 megawatts of electricity each day and supplies 25% of the power used downstate, virtually carbon-free. Indian Point is vital to our state and needs to be continually supported. This is a crucial time for Indian Point and for the region. The Teamsters played an integral and vital role in developing the One NYC plan, and we will continue to be part of the fabric that provides safe, efficient energy to New Yorkers at Indian Point. Thank you very much.